focusing on what's required from an adult learning perspective, and also from an inclusive and diversity perspective, really recognizing how thankful we are to be in Canada. I think that the overall sentiment when I do look at the news, although I try and avoid it, the overall sentiment about the leadership of our elected officials is one of working together, collaborating, doing the best that they can to represent who we are as Canadians and who we welcome into our communities. So the equity and the diversity and the inclusive lens to which we govern ourselves is, I think, really shining right now. So with that, we have Bailey Teeple, who yesterday I called her Temple and she said, don't worry about it, but it's funny what keeps you up at these times. And so I am pronouncing it right with Teeple, right, Bailey?
Yeah. And it's not my husband's fault.
And what's amazing about having Bailey working with us is she's been working with us since January, and Bailey and I have never met face-to-face in real life, IRL, but have been working alongside one another over the last 3 months, and it's a really awesome opportunity to witness what Bailey brings in terms of the lens of working with adult learners and working with students from an English language learning perspective. And Bailey has been supporting that work, as well as when we think of preparing our students, the digital skills, how important it is that our students have these digital skills that they will require to be successful in this learning environment, this community, to stay connected, and that we're considering from the digital skills that we are the equity and diversity voice and who's represented during the experiences that Fair Chance Learning has created. And so Bailey will talk about the work that she's done in Brooklyn recently with our organization. And so, what's going on in New York obviously is very concerning to all of us. And I know it has a special place for Bailey for the work that she's doing. So we're thinking of our friends down in New York for sure. And we're hoping that you all are staying safe and at home and engaged as well. So over to you, Bailey, to help us understand some of these inclusive and equity discussions we should be having. And while you introduce yourself, I'm just going to pull up the PowerPoint.
Awesome. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. This has been a really inspiring week hearing from you all, especially at this time, like Martha said, when anxiety is high. So it's been a really positive space to meet with you here each day, and lots of meaningful discussion. So thank you, everyone, for engaging with us through this. Today, I will be talking about inclusivity and diversity in adult language learners. I've divided my presentation into 2 parts. So first, we'll be looking at the challenges that adult learners, many of whom are parents to your students, are facing during this crisis. And we'll be discussing the ways that we can support them in their learning and in their child's learning as well. So after that, I'll introduce a Coding for Future Skills course that Fair Chance will be offering adult language learners who are hoping to deepen their own skills at this time. So we can just move on to the next slide there. I'll just give you a sense of who I am and where I'm coming from before we start. So firstly, I'm a mom to 2 adventurous little boys. Wes is 7 and Sawyer's 4, and we have been spending lots of quality time together. Some parents out there will probably resonate with this, but at 7 o'clock this morning, my 4-year-old wrote a song and a dance that he prepared to us entitled, "I'm Not Listening to My Mother." So where we're at this morning.
Can he perform it for us, Bailey? I'd like to.
He would. It had sort of like a Mick Jagger vibe, like his dance. But that's where I'm coming from. So I began my career as a teacher 13 years ago, And I had an experience early in my career that sort of shaped the path that I am now on. So you can see here, there's some pictures. I'm going to sort of be discussing this time in my life. So we had some friends that were volunteering at a small resource center that supported primarily refugee newcomers, and programs were being run for adults where they were offering cooking classes and community garden and support with job seeking skills. But we quickly realized that a bunch of teenagers were part of this community and they had nothing to do on evenings and weekends. So we started a drop-in youth program, and actually Titus was involved in this as well. So in the picture where everyone's kind of jumping around there, like he's in there somewhere, I'm sure of it. Sadly, I have no embarrassing pictures to share of him with you here, but I'm going to keep looking for those. So brace yourself, Titus. Together, we would cook and we would practice interview skills for jobs that they were hoping to apply for. Mostly, though, there was lots of hanging out together, lots of silliness and laughing, and it was a safe place for everyone. So meeting these kids and hearing their stories kind of inspired me to shift my focus, and I began teaching language learners, both adults and kids. So since then, I have continued my work at private language schools and with the school board as well. Just a note on the title of this slide. So this was the name that the kids decided to give our group. So Diversity was the name, and they were firm on the spelling. So that's one thing that I've learned about English language learners, is that they love a great play on words, and this diversity is one of my favorite examples of that. Just a final note on this, we organized a reunion with this group at a park in London a couple summers ago, and you know, everyone's grown up now, and many of these kids have their own kids, their own families. So in having conversations with them, they were referring to that time as the golden years. And in lots of ways, this was the golden years for many of us leaders in this. But it's a reminder to me that establishing this safe space for newcomers, where they feel genuinely valued for what they bring to a community, really leaves a lasting impression. So that's just an introduction, a bit about me and sort of how I started in this. So if we move to the next slide, I'll kind of get into it here. I was just looking for numbers to give us a sense of who adult learners are in Canada, and I was pretty surprised by this. So this is 2003, so keep that in mind, but 49% of Canadian population ages 16 to 65 are participating in courses, programs, and other forms of adult education. So looking at these numbers shows me that we have a culture of learners in Canada. This is something that we value, and something that's necessary to keep the job market, keep people up with the job market. So with that in mind, a lot of adults are being affected in terms of education right now. So not all of the students in this 49% are obviously English language learners, but many of them are, and many are parents to the children that we're teaching. So the question that I'm sort of bringing forward to us today is how do we respond to that as educators? So I'll just go to the next slide. So this is a quote that I came across, and it really resonated with me this week specifically. So we have learned that in times of crisis, societal inequities tend to truly surface. So I'll give you just a minute to think about that. But we've kind of touched on this all week, but in a difficult time like this, I think it's for individuals and families, they're faced with their own challenges, you know, whether that be childcare, lack of income or reduced income, health concerns, mental health. And I think it's often challenging to look past our own challenges, you know, as we sort of adjust to this new way of doing things. And Kim thoughtfully shared yesterday about how this is affecting Indigenous communities around issues of access to education. So yeah, as educators, it's, I think, important that we're mindful that these inequities are surfacing right now, and they're impacting adults, language learners, and their families. So this is something that's right in front of us today, right now. So this just really stood out to me.
I'm obviously following along on Twitter in terms of school districts in Ontario and Alberta. I know that they're slowly rolling back into some sort of formation with respect to what the learning is going to look like. And I just saw one tweet where a school district is saying, listen, you're going to be hearing from your teachers either through phone call or email, and they're going to, like Megan had shared with us on our morning call, they're going to ask, you know, have you been accessing content? What does learning look like at home for you? And in the tweet, it says, if you don't have access to a device, click here to fill out the form. And I was like, if they don't have access to the device, how are they going to click to fill out a form?
Yeah.
So I think that this obviously is very prevalent in the ways that we're thinking of reaching out to these families.
Yeah. So, and I kind of continue with that thought there, Martha, on the next slide. So many of you have probably seen this image. So it's differentiating equality from equity from justice. So if you want to take a minute just to look through it, and I think, you know, I'm challenged to consider the way that this might apply to English language learners and their children in this climate. You know, there are so many conversations, like you said, about access. So I think we're really being challenged right now to think outside the box. So it will be interesting to see if we have suggestions and can sort of learn from each other through this platform here. So if you do have suggestions, share those in the chat, maybe practical ways that you think we can apply this. So if we move on to the next slide, I'm just going to give us an idea of who we're talking about today. So I know in all different worlds of teaching, there are different acronyms. So I just thought I'd touch on a couple of those so we all are comfortable with the language that we're using today. So an English language learner is we use ELL, so that's the student, not the program. And in the past, we would use ESL to describe an ESL student, but that's shifted. So we're now using ELL to talk about the learner. English as a second language is the actual program for the English learners. And ELD, some of you might be familiar with this. It's a program for students who've had limited opportunities to develop language and literacy skills in their first language. So oftentimes these are students who are coming from countries where access to education is either inconsistent, disrupted, or unavailable. And as a result, they arrive in Ontario schools with significant gaps in their education. So that's just a little note there. And we can just continue on to the next slide. So again, this is something that we have been talking about a lot. So we know that families are met with challenges. We've talked about work, finances, childcare, health concerns. We've also talked about access. So do these families have Wi-Fi? Do they have a device? If there's 3 or 4 kids in the home, is there a device for each child? And then obviously for this group, language is or can be a barrier. So I'm just thinking about the number of resources that are being sent my way as a parent, and having English as my first language, you know, it can feel quite overwhelming to me. So I'm trying to put myself, you know, understanding that from a perspective where parents are being inundated with all of these resources, and then when English is not their first language, you know, that can add to that sense of overwhelmingness.
So just on that, Bailey,
yeah.
like, I wonder if the people who are in this chat with us, whether you can comment either in chat, but I would love to hear from you as well. How you supported English language learners in your classroom, like when you had them in the physical space, what did that look like? Because I would, you know, we still weren't meeting the needs of our students in the physical way to the fullest effect, I would say, for English language learners. And so now we have this additional obstacle in connecting virtually. So I just want to know what it looked like from a physical space as we try and envision what it could look like from a virtual space. Yeah.
Did you want to go ahead there?
Nope, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think for a lot of teachers, the strategies that we use for lots of students or for English language learners are strategies that we can apply to all students. So I know lots of great teachers that make use of visuals in their classroom, and they have, you know, if there's a Spanish speaker and an Arabic speaker, they'll have their anchor charts have, you know, 2 languages there, and there's lots of just really cool ways that teachers are already doing this stuff. But it will be interesting to see, I don't have the chat up, but to see what everyone's saying there.
So there's a great comment from Balmoral Hall, and it's good opportunity to look at how to best teach when schools resume in September. We just have a neighbor driving by and honking their horn. Totally disruptive. Just kidding. So should a grade 3 teacher move to grade 4 to get the same students, so it doesn't have time wasted getting to know their strengths and weaknesses? I think that's such an amazing idea, right? To welcome our students back as the teacher who was there when they left, like a continuity of support. That, I think that's awesome. Now they're totally being disrupted.
They're really going for it.
Yeah. They didn't see my finger. Yeah. Just kidding. I think that's an amazing idea. And then Alana was saying that her concern is, like, if we continue with the disruptions around work, but then when parents return to work, and so they're working shifts and they're not with their students or their children during the day, what does that look like if it's the grandparents who are at home? So now when you talk about the digital divide, if your grandparents aren't familiar with technology, they're not going to be able to support the learning.
Yeah. So on the next slide here, you know, we've acknowledged the challenges, but I think it's important to keep in mind these 2 points. So parents have the capacity to help their children regardless of their background. So I think this is the time to think about how we empower adult learners to see the value that they bring not only to their own learning, but to, you know, as I say in the following point here, the parents are a child's first teacher and they are an expert on their child. So I think part of our role in sorting this all out can be reminding parents of this and empowering them as we begin that communication. If we move on to the next slide, I'll just read this part. So all parents are wondering how to best support their children's education at this time, and they are looking to teachers for advice. And I think as educators, we are feeling that heavily right now. So some suggestions for educators looking to provide support to parents. These are just a few things that have stood out to me this week as suggestions. So I really like this one. So encouraging parents to connect with each other. So what I see a lot with newcomers is that this is their strength. So many newcomers that are arriving in Canada are really great at finding each other and connecting and forming that community. So this is a really awesome time to sort of lean into that and encourage parents to share ideas, you know, when they are getting these resources home from the school, to help each other with that language and to offer support. So that's sort of something I saw as a positive here, is to make use of that community that already exists. One thing we like to do as teachers is to remind parents to read with their kids and read on their own and read with their kids and read on their own. So reminding parents that they can read with their children in their first language. So I write L1 here. That just means that it's the child's first language. So in the past, we used to talk about, you know, English, English, English. But we are realizing that language is language, and literacy can be developed through exposure to your first language as well. That's a real asset. And so we're trying to convey that message to parents that that reading in your child's first language is great. So there's some dual language apps that some of you might have used. One of them is Unite for Literacy, and that's a great one that is good for students who are just learning to read. So the app has the words in English and the words in your chosen language, and then parents and kids can read together and listen to the stories as well. Just another tip there is about making use of the translator app at home. So when we're getting these notices from the school, to use that as well. And a teacher on Twitter in our board included this, and I think it's just awesome. So keeping in mind that the most important thing for children to know is they're loved and they're safe, and the rest is bonus. And you know, as a parent myself, I needed that reminder this week as well.
And sometimes they don't have to listen to their mom, and they can turn it into a beautiful song and dance.
Well, yeah, exactly. And that is what happened, Martha, this morning. So this is a really special video. One of the coordinators at our board shared this. So often when I talk to parents who are English language learners themselves, one of the biggest things that they feel is that they can't engage with their child to support them in their education because they say, I don't speak English. And the number of times I hear, I don't speak English, and I'm sure, you know, we can all sort of resonate with that. But this teacher took that as an opportunity to involve the parent in the class. So you can just read the caption at the side there. And Martha, if you don't mind playing the video, that would be great.
قال والد كريم: اليوم تبدأ مباريات كرة القدم. أحب أن تنضم إلى اللاعبين الصغار. أجاب كريم: لا، لقد شعر سمين جدا وأكبر من أن يلعب كرة القدم. وهذا كريم. قال أبوه: his Karim and his father Karim. You want to play?
Awesome. So I think it's really encouraging to see educators being creative and thinking of ways that they can include all parents in their child's education. So the modeling from this parent, I think, is really positive to see as well. And she's switched from I can't speak English, so I can't engage, to I can read this story to you in my language, and isn't that cool? And what I love is the expression on this little girl's face. She's just so proud, you know?
So sweet. I think, and as we were reflecting on it yesterday as a team from Kim's presentation, Bailey, you had made a comment about, and I see it threaded through this presentation, about how important it is to validate and value what the parent has to offer the student in terms of learning, right?
Mm-hmm.
That their culture is valued in the learning process, that they themselves, their experiences are valuable lessons from an education perspective, not just from a family lineage and culture perspective, but that they're helping inform the child as a student, as a love of learning. And so giving that respect to the parent really, you know, I think again goes back to that humanity conversation. We have to, I think we are charged to make learning more real, personal, humane as we move forward, and making these connections where parents do feel valued in the learning process is critical, especially for parents from who are English language learners.
Yeah. Yeah. So this shift to thinking from an asset-based approach to learning is prevalent in English language learning right now. So I just thought I'd quickly show this to you as an example of it. But this is the STEP framework. STEP is steps for English, steps to English proficiency. And it's a framework that we use to talk about what English language learners can do as they progress through levels of language acquisition. So I just loved this. A colleague shared this with me in a course I was taking, and it just reminded me about how I'm talking about students and how we can encourage parents to talk about them as well. And then just in the next slide there, this is just a practical example of trying to reinforce this thinking with some of my own students. So this is in an elementary setting, but at the end of each class with my group, this was an exit ticket that I gave them. So you can see on the white cards there, I can read about blank in English, write about, and talk about, and that would be based on what the students had learned that day in class. And this was, you know, I wasn't entirely sure how this would go, but it really did shift the way that the kids were talking about themselves. So before they left the class, they read this to me, and then they put it in this little bucket, a little folder, and then, you know, they got 10 tickets, they got a prize, and my prizes were pretty good. So they were pretty excited about this. But I was surprised at really how it did sort of create a more positive climate in our conversations with each other about what students can do.
Awesome.
So I feel like I have talked a lot. this is a brain break. So some of you may be familiar with Shad. He is a Canadian rapper who, among many things, hosts Hip Hop Evolution on Netflix. So we all have lots of time on our hands. If you're looking for something to do over the next while and are into hip hop things, this is a good watch. And just a fun fact, Shad was also involved in the well-known diversity group that we mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. So his song Fam Jam just has a real celebratory vibe, and he has some insights from his perspective. So just take a moment to listen, and after listening, if you could share your ideas in the staff room chat so we can learn from each other, that would be great.
So is this where Titus got his dance skills from then? It was from Chad? Or Chad?
We have even other dance skill experiences. Don't get me started.
I look forward to seeing them.
Woo! It's gonna be a jam. And show these young bloods how we used to do it. Flying color, what's a flying color? Hey DJ, you're late. Still got my tricep. Gonna do this thing. Gonna set this party off. You got that Jay-Z, Kanye West? Drop that beat. Not bad. Put some immigrants.
Yeah, from donated clothes to caps and gowns. It's a little shout to my black and brown folks that know the game, not in class to clown. Had the funny accent, well, look who's laughing now. See, Samir came here to grind, and he slaved at every minimum wage job. But he saved that, brought his sister on scholarship to make stacks, working as a surgeon she bottled with and paid cash. No time to whine, we just face facts. Let's fit 6 in the back and let's take that to the best restaurants, make reservations. Since we out here, since they made reservations for First Nations and they never made reparations, the natives probably relate more to immigration. So this for y'all too, when I can't forget the Haitians here for an education. It's a celebration. Guys that draw lines and make borders real, but then bend the rules when there's more to drill. Don't turn away the stateless. Think of the waste if 1 in 3 refugees is a Lauryn Hill. Come a long way, we can move forward still. From the poorest to up by Lawrence, Forest Hill. But more than that, Squillery Banks, just chill. Make a home, just build in a zone less ill. In a place to be safe, you found an escape route where we come from. So we grateful to Jesus. And now the top is the next stop. This drop ought to have my aunts on a guest spot, red hot. I'm talking going from sweatshops to tech stocks. Doctors without borders with dreadlocks. We quoting S. Carter on Otis. Turns out some fresh off the boat kid wrote this. Not bad, huh? Some immigrants. When you're third world born, but first world form, sometimes you feel pride, sometimes you feel torn. See, my mother tongue's not what they speak where my mother's from. She moved to London with her husband when their son was 1. And one time after family ties, I turned on the news and saw my family die. Why? Pop said it's murder in the motherland and things about colonialism I didn't understand. All the things that shape a man in his mind state. A community income and crime rate. If times change, why my people still in dire straits? If it's a big world, show me where's my place in it. I had to talk to Pops for a minute. He said Shad and Squirrel wasn't home to begin with. Just keep defending the oppressed, take steps and keep rapping. You might just be the best. Well, we should do this again, huh? Right? I told these young brothers how to get down. I had the moves on. I put the moves down on them. These young brothers didn't know what to do, right?
Thank you all for indulging me with that.
That was awesome.
So yeah, it will be interesting to see what you all share here. So how do you celebrate diversity in your own classroom? So I think a lot of us can probably think of the ways that we are currently doing that, or ways that we would like to, start doing that. But I think the interesting point to note here is, how do we continue this in an online learning platform with your students? So, yeah, it will be interesting.
This is just pulling out a couple of comments for you. Patty said, well, this is not what I expected in the morning webinar. Thanks, Bailey. And then Krista said, celebrating and learning from different traditions from all families. Learned about Yelda and Nauras. I don't think I'm pronouncing those correctly. Find books that tell as many stories as possible. Diversity in all texts. And discussions about spaces within our classroom for different beliefs.
Awesome.
And then Jane has an idea here, which I think is an amazing too. I'm thinking about how I can leverage Flipgrid to create community and celebrate my students, thinking about equity too. Some students may not have Wi-Fi, but they have data enough to send a short 30 max video. So that's an awesome point. I know that cellular data they're really looking at how to best leverage that and optimize, like from the Flipgrid side or the team side, how to maximize the cellular data network, or maximize the technology to run on cellular data network. So that's a really good point. Like mobile devices are going to be, I think, critical to the support that we offer parents and students. So it might not be a laptop. And I would say that, my son is uber efficient on his mobile, not his because he's 8, but he's uber efficient on Dustin and my phone. He's got Dustin's, he's able to do the face recognition with Dustin's phone. He set that up for himself. And so I think that, learning can take place through this medium as well. And we shouldn't forget about that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's nice to see what everyone's saying here. So we're coming to the end of the presentation. There's just a couple of slides left.
Sorry.
It's going to be a jam.
It's going to be a jam.
But yeah, so earlier we talked about the importance of empowering parents to recognize their skills as parents of English language learners, but we also want to empower them to deepen their skills as individuals as well. So this is the part that Martha mentioned earlier. We're excited to share a bit about a course that we are offering to adult language learners in New York City. So I've been working on this project with another educator on our team, Barb Seaton, and Titus as well. So this is just to give you a quick picture of the course that we're offering. So this is just a shot of a PD session that we led for the educators to the right here. So I think at this point, everyone's getting right into microbits. This was a very passionate group, and it was a really awesome day. So Coding for Future Skills is the name of our course, and it's an inspiring hands-on learning program designed to develop a foundation of computer science knowledge and to learn new approaches to problem solving, computational, and design thinking. And it seeks to equip teachers and students with the skills needed to become not only technology users, but also digital creators. So that just gives you a sense of the course. And then if we just move to the next slide. So this just highlights some of the features of our course. And I think much of what's being done in adult English language programs right now is focusing on learning the English language itself. But what's exciting about this course is that learning to code acts as an equalizer for students, as coding itself is a language, right? So anyone who learns how to code can speak that universal language, and that's something that these educators are excited about for their students. So it's evident in talking with these educators that, and we're hopeful that this course will fill a gap in the English language learning world. And you know, these 21st century skills are transferable to many careers. So it's a really exciting time for these language schools to think about how they can incorporate these skills in their language programs. And then I just have a quick slide here to talk about Translator. So earlier in the week, Corinne highlighted some amazing ways that we can use and incorporate Translator to enhance our learning. So throughout the Coding for Future Skills course, educators and students are making use of the Translator app to ensure that students are understanding, comprehending new vocabulary. So we're working to move our course to an online platform so that it can be available to educators and adult learners. So yeah, I guess I'll just leave by saying if you or any of your colleagues are interested in seeing how this course might fit in with your students, or if you have any questions about the course, feel free to reach out to those of us at Fair Chance, and we would be happy to talk to you about this project. The final slide was just a great reminder for me this week. So as we work together to make sense, I guess, of the new ways that we're moving through the world and supporting one another, I think it's just good to, for me anyways, to be mindful that it's not always going to be perfect, and that's okay. So I hope you find some encouragement here as well. I just loved how, like, it wasn't perfect the way they wrote it, and it's just, I just liked it. I'm going to put it on my fridge or something. But yeah, thank you all for your thoughts today, and yeah, it was great to. I'm excited to read what you've written. I haven't been able to like talk and look at those at the same time, but thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Bailey. That was amazing. Please, please share with us, like hop off your phones or your mute button there and chat with us about your reflections and the challenges you see and some of the strategies you're willing to try there. Bailey made a great point about the translation app, and in Microsoft Teams, you also have currently, you have the opportunity to turn on live captions. So with your 3 dots, you can turn on live captions for yourself privately and have it come up. Currently, it's only in English, but with the way Microsoft's committed to language as no longer a barrier to learning, and it sounds like they're keeping pace with the pedagogical thinking with respect to any language develops literacy. So, you know, embracing your own language. We would hope to see that these translations or these closed captions could be selected in your own language. That being said, with the translator app, you can absolutely do that. So Bailey could be speaking in English and I could have the translator app up speaking Arabic or being interpreted into Arabic for me. The other piece is the immersive reader, which Bailey didn't touch on, but as we start developing where we will go with these staff chats, I can see in my mind how, you know, it will be a continuation of language learning, English language learners, and inclusion, and how we can look at building some of your technical skills as it relates to supporting these students. So looking forward to continuing the upskilling for you, and so you can, you know, build those communities of welcoming communities that you're trying to create for your students and their parents and their families, grandparents as well. So does anybody want to contribute outside of the chat? And you'll also, sorry, while you're thinking about it, you noticed there, which was super cool about the Teams function that I just realized, is that Corinne asked to control the PowerPoint as well. And so we saw her face and her cursor and my face and my cursor. So as you're thinking about using this as an instructional tool, it's nice to know that you can get multiple people contributing on a PowerPoint, thinking and about whatever the concepts might be presented. So thanks for that, Corinne.
Hello, my name's Jane. I'm here in Uxbridge, Ontario, and I'm the STEM and Science Facilitator for the Durham District School Board. We have gone to one-to-one Chromebooks, and so most of the devices that we use are no longer Microsoft, but rather Google. And I was just wondering if there were any suggestions that you might have for engaging English language learners with respect to any of the Google tools that that you have familiarity with.
Great question. So Bailey, are you familiar? I know that there's the Google Translator that's available, but because the Microsoft Translator app is web-based, it doesn't matter if you're on a Chromebook in the Chrome environment, you can have access to it there.
And I would say, Jane, the competencies or approach that you would have to extensions in a browser and working in the cloud would be very similar. It would just be unpacking some of those Microsoft cloud-based tools within that environment, and they would be safe and secure in the infrastructure you have 100%. And we're happy to help take it offline if you want to try to test some of that out.
And Jane, you were at our office, right? Yeah, Jane's been to Fair Chance Learning.
I'm never sure if I should unmute or mute. Yes, I did. I get a chance to come and visit you, and that was really exciting to see your face. I've thought a few times about maybe when this is all over and we're allowed to, you know, leave the house, coming in and paying you another visit, because it was certainly a great day.
Awesome. And I mean, the butter tarts is a big draw too.
It was amazing.
Yeah, you get it. We picked our office space to be strategically placed by the best butter tarts in Canada. And if anybody wants to defend that, that's fine, but you have to come and try the butter tarts in order to compete. Any other comments or suggestions or ideas of how to enjoy the weekend? Our team decided this morning that we will be creating a Spotify FCL playlist. So we'll have Shad on there for sure. I was thinking what, Lizzo? Ooh, child, kick off your shoes. There's a bottle of tequila waiting for you. That was going through my head. I don't know why.
I think it should definitely be added now, Martha, now that you've said it.
Yeah.
There.
Oh. Any other thoughts or ideas? In terms of next week, though, just as a glimpse, we'll be looking at Minecraft with Barb Seaton, who is leading our Minecraft initiative. We have webinars, weekly webinars for Minecraft, so you're welcome to sign up. Minecraft is widely available across Canada for students. And we will also be looking at some of the other partner programs that have offered up resources at home for when, I know Zelia's been on the call, and the Code to Learn at Home. There's some great resources there, and Fair Chance Learning is supporting in terms of offering sessions that include microbits, which is really exciting. Dustin and I are on a microbit education foundation webinar on Monday afternoon. So we're looking forward to that. We're going to do some work around Flipgrid, which would be obviously something you can access, Jane, and some of the other tools that will really try and support the remote learning. Teams obviously would be one that we could drive deeper into. Wellness will continue to be a theme. Bailey, you upped our game in terms of the brain break. I love that today and how naturally that fit in. I know you know of our partnership with We, or a lot of you do, but they'll participate or continue to participate and guide us through those conversations. So we're excited to share those resources along that journey as well.